Welcome to the Investor Insights Show. I'm your host, Scott Dillingham. I'm going to be kind of giving you a recap of how COVID-19 has affected investors from the start to the finish and where we are now. In the description, I'll link to an article which has more details. But pretty much since the beginning of COVID, the investors were really hurt. It was struggling because the government shut down the tribunals. So if you had a bad tenant, you couldn't kick them out. There was a bunch of tenants in online Facebook groups that are saying, oh, we're not paying rent. And they all stopped paying rent. Not all of them. Like mine, I actually had all my tenants paid. None of them stopped. But I know it was a thing for a lot of my clients that their tenants stopped paying rent deliberately just because they could, right? Because they knew they couldn't get kicked out. So at the beginning of COVID, it was very tough for investors. Then the investors that invested in student properties, what was happening was the schools were online now. They weren't in person because of COVID. So a ton of the student rentals became vacant across the country. And the lenders scaled back their lending on these properties because who wants to lend on a vacant property that can't get rented out, right? It increases the lender's risk. So they tightened up. But then slowly during the pandemic, the tribunals have started to open up. There is still a bit of a backlog, right? Because now they're getting all the issues and all the tenant things through that couldn't get through. So there is a backlog. But now for investors, it's looking quite bright, right? The tribunals are open, things are pushing, they're able to evict the non-paying tenants, but also the rents have started to creep up a bit too, because now the housing market is cooling a bit, and the tenants are not tenants, just people in general. There's less sales going on, so there's more demand for rents, which means that the rents have went up too. So now it's sort of a completely different scenario. The schools are back in, right? So those student rental investors were able to go forward. The vacation style properties like the Airbnbs and cottages, those are now being rented out. In fact, even during COVID, I think the very first part of COVID, the like vacation style properties, no one was traveling, so they weren't rented. But then after a couple lockdowns, and people are like, okay, I just want to get back out. And then they started renting, and those started to become quite popular. But now it seems like, even though like the rates have went up, but housing is cheaper, which means your monthly payments overall, if you look at the averages, the monthly payments on that property is lower, but the rents have went up slightly. So I'm seeing investors have stronger cash flow now than prior. And I know things are still correcting and moving and shifting, and what I'm saying in this video may not be accurate in 6 months, but as of now, that's where things have gone since COVID. So if you ask me if I think it's a good time to invest, I would say yes. I'm personally looking to grow my portfolio in this exact market right now. So I'm practicing what I preach, and I hope this video was insightful to you to get an idea of the market and kind of where it is now. And if you liked it, please subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and then down below is a bunch of links. The first link will be an article which gives more details on this topic, and the other links are free investor tools and resources for you. Enjoy.